There we go. You guys can hear me and see me okay?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that.
If you could just maybe get a little closer to the mic and a little louder. I think we have everything on 10 here.
All right. I'll just make sure I get the right mic set up. Okay. Let me know if I'm not loud enough. I'll get louder as we get into it. So welcome to Creating Amazing.
Let's go ahead and get started. Great. You sound good, Nick.
All right. Thank you. So creating amazing hybrid sessions, tools, tips, and techniques. So I had mentioned I'm a learning architect. My main role is to help people understand technology and figure out how to put the pieces together, help them connect the dots. I come from a design and technology background, and my goal here is to give you all this data so that you can start to play and experiment and look for ways to create better hybrid experiences. The slide deck and a bunch of resources are listed in this little URL at the bottom of the screen, which I'll bring up again at the end, which is just sealworks.team/ATDNJ22. And that will link you to that, and you guys can play and experiment. So that's your homework, and you can let me know what you like, what you don't like, and what you found helpful. As we start our journey, the ideal here is that I'm going to walk you through 3 areas, and hopefully you'll find 1 or 2 things in each area that you're excited about and that you want to play back. We'll have some time at the end for some questions. We're going to start off with what is the plan? And when we're thinking about hybrid design, if we're working with a small group or a large group, we've got to figure out what type of users we're going to be working with and what level of understanding they have of technology. So some of the stuff that we go through will focus on some of the tools that are available. And I know some of us are limited within our organization to a certain series of tools, but I'm going to give you guys all a virtual magic badge where you need to be cheerleaders and ambassadors to help educate your teams and organization why you might want to invest or why you might want to adopt some of these free tools to allow you to create better interactive, engaging experiences. The last area is this magic word that we hear now everywhere from elementary school to corporate. It's almost like the magic word agile, where we hear collaboration, 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 and it's kind of lost its meaning. I'm going to give you an amazing definition of collaboration, which I hope will give you new purpose and show some of the tools that are available now that just blow my mind every time I get to use them, because they just allow me to focus on the message or the learning rather than worrying about how do I build this or do this or click that and so on. It also helps users to focus in on all that content as well. So when we look at what's the plan, the first thing that I always want to focus on is understanding the audience. I work with lots of groups outside of the company, so I often don't know what I'm getting into. So whenever I have an opportunity, I might ask a facilitator that I'm working with or a external group, can I get a photo of what we're working with? So I might ask them to use their phone, take a quick picture of that room or that facility. And you also want to understand what the technology is that you're going to be working with so that you have that ability to do a practice run or a test run to make sure that everything works together. The other thing that you guys probably are familiar with, but just good reminders, is that when you have an opportunity to meet with a new group or an existing group, maybe they come in once a year, you always want to take advantage of a virtual hello. And I think Matt was talking about some of the cool technology that TechSmith has. I'll mention a couple other tools that are out there. We use TechSmith tools every day as well and love them. And depending on your budget and your resources, you might have to start out with an entry-level tool, and then you kind of can grow into that as you can see how that helps. With saying hello, the ideal is that rather than just sending an email or a Word doc or a PowerPoint deck, you can actually come up on camera and share a message with your group. You might ask them to add a note to a chat area or to a document or a shared area so that you can start an interaction with them. And what's fun about that is that the more they get used to that, they'll feel more comfortable with it. So eventually, might be 6 months into it, you'll get them to maybe add audio or video back into that collaboration. So I can do a virtual greeting to that audience, whether if they're going to be in person or not, and they can do the same thing. So it's a great way to interact. The other thing that I would encourage you to do is look at a survey And we have all those tools like Microsoft Forms and Google Forms and SurveyMonkey. But I'm going to share with you one of the next generation of tools, actually two, that allow you to not only interact with a series of questions, but it will quickly allow you to pull data out and also allow you to integrate audio and video if you choose to. So again, it enables you to say hello and allows the audience to say hello back before you actually get into that physical hybrid meeting. And key is that you want to constantly be inviting interaction. You might send a quick update, 2 weeks prior, a week prior, 3 days prior, and just kind of set the table for what to expect, what I want you to do, how I want you to interact, and how we're going to start to play using this technology together. Now, we've all seen with our standard tools that we have, whether it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams or WebEx, that we now have the ability to do breakout rooms, and that basically sends everyone out into rooms. There are some tools like Adobe Connect, which allow you to predefine and set up little tools or documents for your users. And other tools, you kind of got to do it on the fly and allow them to come in, and you've got to give them an assignment or something to do. And then you might jump from area to area. We also have things like our chat, which I dislike because the data just flies by so quickly. And for me, it gets a little bit harder. And what we've gotten into the habit of is reading what's coming up in the chat as people are typing. And when you have a group that's in person or 50 people that might be remote, that gets challenging because you're not sure whether or not that's helpful to all your audience. And that might be something that you want to ask or get some feedback back depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it with your group. You also have whiteboard tools, and we'll talk about how you can take advantage of them. Some of them, in my opinion, work better than others. And that's one of the reasons why I love Zoom, is because it allows you to interact and basically turn on annotation for everyone, or you can use it yourself as a facilitator. But that's a great way to pull in data when you're looking for a quick way to engage an audience. And we'll show an example of that. The third thing that we have to think about is adding an activity or a prompt. And on average, they're saying, depending on the length of your meeting, if you've got an hour meeting or a 3-hour meeting, you want to plan breaks, you want to plan these activities or prompts, and you might do one every several minutes. Again, depending on your audience and what their level is and how they're going to be interacting with the content. But the ideal is to get them to engage. You want to make sure that you're gathering feedback after each session that you do, because you're going to get better and better as you start this journey. And if you're starting out week 1 next week, and a year later, you're going to get magical powers to be able to facilitate and take advantage of this technology as you get used to how it works. One thing I want to stress, it's not about the technology. So you don't want to just add technology for technology's sake. So you want to make sure that it's useful to your audience, going back to that first point, and you want to make sure that they're focused and connecting with the content. There's no reason to use technology for the bling or the pop. We want to make sure that it makes sense for when they're interacting with that information. So one of the prompts that we might do, I mentioned a second ago, is the good old chat. And basically, when you have a larger group, that chat flies by, as we just saw there. And to me, that's a little bit harder to interact with. One of the things that you can do as a facilitator, if you're working in a hybrid way, that it kind of introduces another level of complexity, because you have to pause, make sure your audience in person is doing something and or feels part of the interaction. And that might be as simple as them all having devices in front of them and interacting or participating in that chat. One of the challenges, as I mentioned earlier, is that that data can fly by really quick and it's really easy to miss. And we'll talk about some ways that you can pull out that data or highlight it. But there are better ways, in my opinion, to be able to interact with the audience. One of my favorite is through annotation. And this requires a certain level of tool. So using Zoom would allow this. We can also use some of the collaboration tools, which we'll mention, and they offer different features. So if I turned annotation on and you are all using devices in front of you, or we were all hybrid, or some are mixed, we could be drawing on the screen. So we might ask everyone to draw, and you can have someone, for example, cross out the word Windows. And do I want you to do that? Ideally, no, like you're going to write in a little box. So when we're thinking and planning about how to create those interactions, we have to think about design. We can also maybe use some of the different tools like arrows as well as that pencil tool. And we might, clue the user into what we're going to do and prep them prior to that interaction so we get some, good feedback or good participation. One of my favorite activities to take advantage of is what we call the dot activity, where basically you might have several dots. Here we see yes, mostly, and no. And the ideal is that everyone would grab maybe 3 dots or 2 dots, depending on what your rules are and the data that you're trying to gather. And you might define, hey guys, I want you all to add that data within these little boxes. So we have a little bit more control over how they're interacting. So the ideal is that they can start to drag, and you see someone drag the word mostly above collaboration, but others are following, the prescription that I gave them ahead of time, and they're interacting. And what I love about this is that we're able to visually see and participate at the same time and see how people are interacting rather than interrupting with a poll, pausing and then going to the results. To me, that seems more disconnected and not as useful because I want to be able to correct, collaborate, or steer in a different direction based on what the audience is saying or doing or what they're feeling. So I want to be able to control that. You might also take advantage of emojis. So we can go in and, hey, grab your favorite emoji and tell me, whether you love something that's a smiley face or something that you don't like or don't think is going to help with hybrid participation. You can kind of pop that in as well. So these are simple things that we can take advantage of in a tool like Zoom or using one of the collaboration tools that we're going to talk about in a minute. The other thing that I want to highlight or mention is that if you have the ability, and this could be another facilitator or someone within your organization that you can grab for the day or for that session, or you might hire a producer. And the ideal here is that you have someone that's making sure that everything is flowing in a nice way. So we're able to make sure that we're staying on track. And I know a lot of us don't have that luxury where we're doing everything ourselves and we've got to manage everything. And I say more power to us for doing that. But if you have the ability working with a larger audience or it's a super important meeting, by adding a producer, you have an assistant, you have someone that's making sure that the elements are coming up in the right order. They might be physically in the room with you, or you might have a second one that's participating remotely to help people that are online. So when you have questions or I can't hear, we don't interrupt the whole group. We're focusing on that one person and taking them one-on-one to make sure that they're up and running. Going back to what we started with, the ideal would be that we could also have everyone do a test run prior to joining the real meeting so that we know that everyone is able to make sure that their technology is working and they're able to draw on the screen. So having a series of activities or exercises that they get prompted with ahead of time lets them get more comfortable and lets you feel more relaxed with, I don't have to worry about being support during that facilitation. So that kind of summarizes that. The next area we want to think about is selecting technology and tools that we can utilize. And again, I realize that a lot of us are locked in. Our organization is locked into Teams or Zoom or WebEx, whatever the tool might be. But again, by educating your organization or your manager about these other technologies, it might cost a little bit of money, or you might be able to adopt them for free, depending on which technology it is. But your job is to help build a proof of concept or a pilot of how this is going to save us time, how it's going to create more engagement, and how everyone's going to be happier because I'm able to take advantage, or you're able to take advantage of everyone in person as well as remotely, so no one feels left out. So this is something that you want to study afterwards or take a picture of the screen. But basically, this kind of divides up the current hot products that are out there, and they're kind of broken out into normal screen sharing, event platforms, communication, live streaming, and then presenter tools. And what I would advise is that you touch 1 or 2 of these a week or a month, depending on what resources you have, or you might team up with other team members. But I would strongly recommend looking at these different tools to see what best is a fit for what you need to do. Again, if you're locked into Teams, we need to take advantage of that today to be able to utilize that. But again, part of your job is to spread the wings out and figure out what else is available. We're going to highlight really quick AirMeet and Hopin, which are kind of cool newer tools that allow you to engage people remotely with some neat features. Down at the bottom, we'll also highlight a couple of these. You may have heard or played with tools like Mentimeter or Slido. Those work within Google Slides or PowerPoint to allow you to have people in the audience use their phone or use a web link to be able to, click or link or answer a question so you can gather feedback. I personally find those a little disruptive because we're switching from one area to another. And, when I'm working with larger groups of 50 to 100 plus, I find that, a very small percentage interact with it. I might get 5 to 10% if I'm lucky, and it may be just the audiences that I'm working with. But again, that's part of your job, is to figure out whether your audience will clue in or get excited about those technologies. Again, you might think it's the best thing ever, but if it doesn't click or make sense to your audience, it doesn't really matter. So one of the great things about tools like Microsoft Teams is that, during the pandemic, we had this ability now to create these virtual classrooms so people can pop up. It's kind of interesting, so that if you want people to feel like they're in the room or in the classroom, you can do that. And it's kind of a neat gimmick, but I don't really see that much value in it because everyone's done it, several times now. And, it's kind of, again, depending on your audience, you're going to see whether it works. One of my favorite tools that I was exposed to is called AirMeet. And what's nice about this tool, and I think we're seeing Teams, Zoom, WebEx, all the other platforms starting to borrow from what they're seeing works, which is something that I love, because if we're stuck using a particular platform, we're going to get those, those objects or tools eventually. It just might take some time. So one of the nice things about AirMeet is that people can react to what the facilitator or speaker is saying if they're remote or if they're in the room. Again, if you invite everyone in the room to have technology present, whether it's their phone, a tablet, or computer, they can also participate. And that's really important because you want them to feel like they're part of it as well or not left out. So what I love about this is that you can get instant feedback in front of you. I don't have to, you don't have to look at it in the corner or dig for it or bring up another window. Everyone sees that, wow, everyone's agreeing, we love this, or this is something really strong, or I think we should adopt this technology or this solution or whatever we're solving or teaching or whatever we find helpful. So within all of our platforms, we have reactions. They may not be as visual, but part of our job is to understand the technology and understand what we can take advantage of. One of the nice features of AirMeet as well is that if you're working with a larger event where you might have several speakers or several events like today, and they may be a mix of in-person or virtual, you can have virtual tables. And what's nice about that is that you can invite different speakers to host, or you might have different topics. And as people sit down or click in a physical environment, you want to have everyone have headphones, or you're going to hear lots of noise, or maybe they break out into different rooms so that you can, in the physical space. But if you're virtual and you have headphones, then you're able to also participate in this. But it allows for that same type of interaction when people move from table to table, maybe over lunch or as you guys go to dinner this evening, you're able to talk about different things that you might be interested in. So one of the tools I mentioned earlier that I love is Zoom. Why? Because it allows us to annotate. And one of the great things about that is that if you're using a phone or a tablet, you're able to use that pencil. And if you have a Microsoft Surface tablet, it also works well. Or if you have a touch screen, you can actually just draw on the screen. So some of those activities like drag the emoji or draw a happy face or write your name, it allows, again, for that deeper engagement because people feel more connected that they're participating rather than just typing in that chat and it's all whizzing by. So I'm a big believer of using the annotation tool to pull out that data. One of the other exciting things that we've seen over the last, I'm going to say 18 months, is the Zap or app technology. So now within Teams, within Zoom, within WebEx, you're able to launch other products. So here you see a couple of the products that we use, like Dropbox, Asana, Slack. You can also have polling or a whiteboard. And what the ideal is currently, if I were going to ask everyone to pull out their computer and jump to a collaborative tool, I'd share a link and I would wait for everyone to join that link. and their experience would be disrupted because they're leaving the Zoom window, launching another app or launching their browser and going to that. That might be, you might lose half your audience when you do that because they may not be comfortable, like, wait, what happened to our Teams meeting or what happened to it? So this app technology allows you to embed the tool that you want to use within it. So it's less disruptive and allows everyone to basically, you as a facilitator, to trigger it. So if I say launch Asana or launch Miro, everyone would see that window all within that main meeting window. So it makes it a lot easier for you to control participation and bring everyone to where you want them to be at that time of need or that time of engagement, so that you don't have to worry about, wait, what happened, or how do I get there? We don't disrupt the flow of the class. Does that make sense? Any thumbs up? Yeah. All right. Okay, one of the other really cool tools that isn't working for me today, I think because of the Zoom within Rider technology, is a product called OBS Project. And this is something that you can install on your Mac or Windows computer for free. It costs you no dollars. You download it for free, you install it, and what it allows you to do is basically turn your laptop or workstation into a studio. And what does that mean? That basically means that you can broadcast anything that you have on your computer. So currently, if I want to share another product, I can choose to share my desktop or share a screen, but I would usually stop and start or switch. And when we start to use these collaborative tools, using a platform like this allows us to remotely control from our main workstation or laptop what's happening. What's also great is that you can quickly record. So here you see an example of a little video I was doing for one of the sessions at DevLearn, where I just came up on top of my PowerPoint presentation and was talking about, hey, I'm really excited to be doing this, what I expect you guys to bring and learn, and let's have some fun. So OBS allows you to record anything that's on your screen, but it also allows you to control it. So after you go through a little bit of setup, you go through some tools that you want to use, you're able to record anything that you have or broadcast everything. So here's a quick example of me with a green screen. It's just a little bit of a screen that's like 49 bucks that you can pop up behind you. In OBS, you can resize yourself. So you can be center, you can be left, you can be right, but then you can also key out your background. If you were to use a light, you would get rid of the little green halo that you see. This is in a hotel room. So that's why you see a little bit of that. And you'll see a light come on in a sec. What's also really cool is that you can bring up any screen that you have on your computer. So one of the areas that I work with, or tools that I work with, is Adobe XD. So if we were asking our audience and our in-person people for some feedback about this design and how users will interact with the learning experience, it allows us to pull that up and broadcast that to everyone, whether it's on the big screen or whether it's to their device. So in a tool like Zoom, you're able to go to preferences, click on video, and then say, bring up our virtual screen, which is great. So then you're able to broadcast that rather than just your camera. When you're looking at investing in your setup, you might want to add a better camera, a better microphone, that green screen, and maybe some lighting. And lighting ranges in price. One of my simple green screens that I'll utilize is called the eMark green screen. It's only 45 bucks. It's pretty portable. If you're at home, it's not as convenient because it does come down and out, but it has a nice bag if you need to move it from office to office or area to area. What's also nice is if you're recording talent or participants, you can put them in front of your organization's room, or in front of the factory, or any other visual that you want to bring up. So adding that green screen will increase quality. We can also use a light, and one of my favorite ones that is simple and portable is the Logitech Litra Glow. It's only 59 bucks and it looks big here, but it actually just sits on top of your computer, and it's about 3.5 by 3.5 inches. What's great about it is that you're able to control it through the buttons on the back of the device or through its software. So on your Mac or Windows computer, you can control the lighting, or you can turn it on or off through a little software prompt. You can also add a hotkey, so you can trigger it really quick, and then that allows you to focus again on your content that you're facilitating or presenting, but it allows you to look a lot better. So you can see the difference in the visual here of how the light pops up. Another really cool app that is on a subscription service, similar to OBS Studio, which again is free, the app which is mmHmm.app, is available for both Mac and Windows. It runs about $100 per year. And basically it takes out all of the setup because they've made it really simple that you can click a couple of buttons and you can bring yourself up inside of a visual. So here's someone playing the saxophone inside of a box. So you can key different elements. You can make things noisy or not. You can see the interface is pretty easy to use. It looks similar to Apple's Keynote, which is a real simple product, but you can see what's going to happen. And again, if you were trying to prompt or bring up different things, everyone in the physical room would see it on the big screen. Everyone that's virtual would see it through Teams or Zoom or whichever platform. You can also do some fun things like when you do a certain, wave or, number one, or say, call me, that automatically prompts different types of activities or objects. And you can see here, we're queuing up a board and we can have it come up behind us, or we can replace ourselves with just that, depending on what we want to deliver or focus on. And what's nice is that you have, quick keys that you can use or triggers to turn these things on or off. So it really gives you a bunch of different powers. The other thing that we have is the ability to do those feedback reactions. And we talked about some of them earlier where you can do thumbs up, thumbs down. Within Teams now, you have some really nice ones that appear over the different facilitators. So people in the room that are joining in person can still participate in this because they're on their device. You just don't want to have audio on so there's no conflict. What you see in the center area is a newer product that Adobe just bought 2 weeks ago from the Figma group for $20 billion. And I think what'll happen is if you have the Creative Suite, these tools will become part of that. But what's really exciting about these tools is that they've kind of broken through to another level of interactivity, where as the user moves their cursor around on screen, we can see everyone's cursor and we can see their name. We can see emojis coming out of them. So I could be giving some feedback to the facilitator, like, you're on fire. That's an amazing point. Or I can, stamp the screen with some hearts or different emojis to give them feedback that I love this, ideal, or I'm not sure. Here you see an example where you're able to change your cursor into a little message. So if you have a question and you don't feel comfortable speaking up or yelling across the microphone, you're able to type it in and just bring it up on screen, and the facilitator or another participant could answer that or interact as well, depending on the rules that you've set up for engagement. So very cool where we're going to be heading in the next 12 months with these new powers. Another really cool app is Presentify, which is available for the Mac, but basically allows you to annotate any screen. So we use Teams all the time with some of the organizations that we work with. So Presentify allows me to draw on a screen share without having to bring up the whiteboard or bring up another screen. It's only $6, and if you use a Mac, it's an amazing tool. So here you see me highlighting some different images, drawing on the screen. If we were using Zoom again, everyone can do this just by turning on annotation and having everyone doing it interactively, but we don't always have these powers. So I'm crying, asking Microsoft every day, please add annotation to your platform. As a facilitator, if you can add a second screen, highly recommend it, especially if you're working from home. If you can add a third screen, more power to you. What's nice is that screens are super inexpensive nowadays. You can get them starting at $100. You can get a really good one for $300 that's super big. So as I've gotten older, I've noticed my screens have gotten bigger. This is my current setup, a little bit scary. And I'm a tinkerer, so it constantly changes. I can post a version of today's setup, which is a little bit different. One of my favorite tools that I have on my desk is called the Elgato Stream Deck. And this is a little device that ranges in price from about $75 to about $200, depending on the number of keys. Of course, I want to have the biggest one, so I got the XL. And why? Because it allows me to have more buttons. But what's amazing about this tool is that it lets you have hotkeys. And as you have more things to think of and more things happening, this is something that you can carry in your bag to a physical training room, or if you're, again, working remotely. But the software is where the magic happens, because you can add icons and imagery and you can have different setups. So one of my favorite tools we'll talk about in a minute is called Miro. So I have a board just dedicated to that. If I'm in Zoom, I can like turn my lights on or turn off the Zoom meeting or the video or end the meeting just by hitting a key and not have to hunt for it on screen. So that's where the magic happens in there. If you're super into it, they also make a pedal which sits on the floor. And this is not something that you're going to carry from area to area. But if you're remote like I am today, I can use the pedal to turn my mic on or off, launch an app, or trigger another interaction. And you only have 3 keys, but you can trigger it. And what's nice is that I'm not fumbling around. I know where my foot is, and I can just hit that button. And again, it would trigger different things. Another thing that I found super helpful, a little bit more of an investment, is a product called the Meeting Owl. And this is about $1,000. But what I love about it is that it's super portable. It'll fit into my bag, and I'm able to bring it into a organization's conference room or training room. And what's great about this product is that it will automatically show, like you guys are showing the camera of you guys today. But what the Meeting Owl will do is it will automatically zoom in on the speaker or the person that's asking a question and allow you to see anyone who's talking. So it will automatically bring up anyone who's participating to the forefront, and you can still see the whole room. What I love about this is that you don't have to do anything. It's all AI and automated. So it just plugs into your computer through a USB connection. And again, a little bit of investment up front, but if you are working with large groups, you don't know the room you're going into, this is a magical device that just makes your life easier because you look good, your team looks good, your audience looks good, and it lets you focus on teaching or training rather than how am I going to move that camera? How am I going to zoom in? How am I going to hear everyone? So you kind of put it in the center of the room. Another great tool that I find super helpful is Otter AI. And what Otter does is that it allows you to record your meeting audio and it transcribes it. And it works really well with Zoom or a mobile device. You have to ask permission. But what I love about this is that when you're doing training and you want to provide your audience with a tool after the fact, the Otter interface will allow you to search for, I remember the facilitator talked about learning the product A. I don't remember what they said. So rather than building a training or something, the transcript is fully searchable. So if you type in product A, it will automatically jump, or you can do a find. Or if you click on a word, it will automatically start playing from that point with audio. If you have that producer with you, they can also capture key information, basically whatever's on screen or whatever's happening on camera, so that that becomes part of the transcript. And that requires a subscription, which runs about $200 a year. And I believe it's about 6,000 minutes per month, which I haven't been able to beat yet. I've been happy with that. For free, you can use it for 600 minutes a month, which if you want to play with it or try it out, do a pilot, highly recommend it. It doesn't give you the AI features, but you can set up for a trial account and measure that, but super cool. One other product that I love is Loom, which is loom.com. Basically, this puts something similar to Camtasia, but a little simpler, or when Matt was talking about in some of the new features in Snagit, where basically you can record anything. They have a trial version that you can take advantage of, and then it's a subscription service, and similar to what TechSmith has done, and I love TechSmith products, so highly recommend them. What I love is that it's free to play and test out, and you might be able to take advantage of it when you're strapped for resources. So it lets you record anything. And if you're sending a message out to your audience, great way to get it out there and have them feel like they know you, or everyone can introduce themselves. So everyone's used a Google Doc or a Microsoft Office doc where we can all be invited into that doc, and I'm typing, you're typing, and we're able to see what we're doing. The next generation of those tools launched about 2 or 3 years ago. And if you haven't heard of them, you've got to catch up. One of my favorite is Miro.com. That's the one we've been using every day for the last 3 years. And I live inside this tool. I would say more than email or more than text messaging. This is my favorite tool for everything with the kids, helping them with homework or planning something with the family, a vacation, or using it every day in training and learning. There's another great product called Mural. I mentioned Fig Jam. And there's several other products like Google's Jamboard, which you can do some research on. But the 2 primary ones today are Miro and Mural. Miro, I love because you can, again, sign up for a free account. You can have up to, what do they call, 3 boards for free. What's great about it is that, anyone using it now? Couple, cool, okay. So what's great about it is that it runs about $200 a year, a little bit less than that, about $150 a year. And you as a facilitator can invite unlimited users to participate in your board. So you can buy it for $150, and then you can invite 10 users one day and 1,000 users the next day to participate in their training or use it for collaboration. And what's great is that everyone can be interacting at the same time. So rather than bringing up something you get a lot more organic when you're brainstorming and thinking about different things. So here you see someone changing the name, someone else adding a visual, someone else might be highlighting or working with different areas. Here you see an example where we had about 50 people participating in this mural board. Some were in person, some were remote, and I'm prompting them like, hey, let's, what's something you learned today? So I can bring them all to me or the part of the board that I'm on, and that would allow them to add some notes or add some information within there. And you can see as they're typing, I can see that. Now, this can be a little bit overwhelming. I call it busy bees. So you can turn off all their cursors. But what's great about this, and what I love, is that it's truly collaborative and it's organic. So what you'll find after doing a day workshop, and then, in the second hour, people will start to organize and or start to make connections between different colors or different elements. And you'll, again, focus on content and the training rather than how do I use this tool? So it's a great way to free people. What's also nice is that you can draw on the screen, you can add an image, you can actually do audio and video conferencing within the tool. I've never used it in the 3 years that we've had the product because we have Zoom and Teams, but it's truly magical. What's also cool is that there are hundreds of templates that you can take advantage of. So here you see an example of someone using the video with 4 different people working on branching out their department and, explaining the different steps within their project. So you can have, again, everyone focusing on different parts. We don't have to share files because everyone's in the same area. As a facilitator, I can focus everyone on an area. I can hide things or say, hey, everyone, let's do this. But it does also allow for freedom, so it's not so disruptive. Here you see an example of a board showing from start to finish an ideal. So they can be virtually as big as you want, which I find freeing and allows, again, focusing on content and learning rather than how do I interact or what do I need to do. What's also awesome about this tool is that if you download it for your tablet, you're able to use a feature called sticky captures. And if you have sticky notes, I've got a virtual board behind me, not a virtual board, but a real board. And I have some sticky notes on there. So if I take a picture with my tablet, I'm able to automatically add those sticky notes to my Miro board, and it automatically OCR the text. So I can click on any one of the stickies and change the name or change the product without having to retype it. So again, we're focusing on being collaborative. So if you have people in the physical room and you want to share it with everyone, I can focus a camera on them. But this is a better way to create that interaction. You can also create fun interactive screens. So there's a link where you can go and play with this one, where we had 100 different participants doing it remotely, and then we had one person in the physical room collaborating with the in-person group to gather their ideals and their thoughts. So someone's capturing that while others can also be participating. If they had a device, they could also do it remotely. One other really cool tool you can take advantage of is the collaborative apps for note-taking. So OneNote, a lot of us are Windows-based users, and we have OneNote. We may not have tried this yet, but you can invite others to a OneNote document. And so we can be collaborating on adding some text or adding some visuals or several different documents. But if you're brainstorming and planning, this is an inexpensive way because we already have it as part of our toolbox. If you're a Microsoft Teams user, so you're able to interact with that. Some of the tools, like on iOS, you have a product called Notability. So if you record, I like to scribble. As you're listening or as you click on a part, it will play the audio back similar to what Otter does from that particular point. And then if you open up that document on your phone, your laptop, or your tablet, it's in sync. So whatever you do on one automatically syncs. So if we're collaborating on taking notes of today's event, we could have had a shared document, and maybe we'll put this on the to-do list for next year. The other thing that's really important as you're starting your journey into building more engaging hybrid interactions is figuring out how to gather input and gather feedback so that we can see how users are interacting and what makes sense for them. So the best way for me is to do a one-on-one with a participant, whether it's at the meeting or afterwards, or I'll set up a Zoom or a Teams meeting. One of the tools that I love is a product called Typeform. Sorry, it's typeform.com. And this allows you to set up an interactive form. What's great about this tool is that rather than saying, go to this link and it opens up a browser, if you're putting it inside your training or inside of another environment like your intranet or a blog page or whatever, you can have it pop up on top of it. So it allows you to embed it or have it overlap with your content. So it's less disruptive, similar to what we were talking about with some of those interactions. Another really cool platform that they have is called Video Ask. And if you go to Video Ask by Typeform, that allows you to not only create interactive surveys, but it allows you to use video. So you can send a link to someone, and rather than them typing, they can record their audio or record their video. So if you're trying to get everyone to introduce themselves, this is a great inexpensive way. And what's funny about this is that, we built a custom platform like this a couple of years ago, which costs about $100,000. Today, we're able to launch a new Video Ask in minutes. Just have to come up with the questions or pull up one of our templates, and it costs about $100 a month, depending on the number of users that you have. If you have a smaller group, it's going to cost a lot less, but it's a great way to have people use their phones and devices to interact. The other thing I want to mention really quick is accessibility. And if this is not something that you're thinking of, I just want to pop the seed into your brain, but there are several ways that people may be challenged, whether it's auditory, visual, motor, seizures, or they might have a learning disability where it's cognitive. And one of the really helpful sites, if you go to Microsoft or Google and you search for Google Accessibility or Microsoft, they have some really good resources. So this is Microsoft's Design Toolkit, which shows you several ways that people may have struggled with accessibility, like you have a broken arm, or you might have a new baby in the family, so you might only have one arm which you can use to interact. But I was like, oh wow, I didn't even think about that. Someone else might have been born with only one hand. But again, learning and understanding what the different possibilities are. And I believe it's a little bit over a sixth of the US population has some type of accessibility challenge, whether it's sight or hearing, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. So this is something that we need to understand and figure out how to, create these interactions. So with all these tools and techniques, I want to remind you to keep it simple. Start slow, don't add everything at one shot. And like next week, I'm going to use all these tools. Use it in moderation and think about, I'm going to try this tool next week, and then we're going to do another tool and another app. Your job is to think about how to connect the dots. And again, start with your audience, understand what's helpful, what they love about their current training, whether it's in person or they're afraid to come back in person, or there's some challenges, and working with your remote groups, what makes sense, and so on. A couple of the resources that I want to mention for you to check out. One of my favorite is Khan Academy, which you may have heard of. And Khan Academy has great resources for kids if you're learning math or physics, or they even have English now and so on. But they also have several of the Pixar training courses, which are available to everyone for free. So you can sign up for a free class. And if you go to khanacademy.org, sign in with a free account, you're able to bring up the Pixar in a box, and they have stories on not only creativity and storytelling, but also animation. So if you're looking to get better at storytelling for your facilitation classes, or you're brand new, you have a brand new facilitator, I found that that's a great way to help people jumpstart their understanding of how to interact and how to engage and how to create better experiences through storytelling. In the link that I'll share